Welcome back to Designsmith. In this video, we're going to be continuing our series on weekly favorites of posters that I found on Pinterest. Before we get started, please subscribe to support the channel. Alright, so the very first poster we're going to be talking about here, I got to start off with a Swiss poster. Wanted to make sure that we get some kind of in the mix here. And this one right here, obviously orange is my favorite color, so I'm going to be automatically drawn to this. And I just love how all of the text here is laid out on this particular design. And also, this is something that may have been a little bit on the trendier side, but I do like how the text, the first part of Bauhaus and the second part of it just kind of overlap with each other and kind of create this shadow type of effect. It's something that got a little bit trendy for a while. You saw it a lot in logo designs, so it's kind of a little bit out of fashion, but not necessarily when it comes to Bauhaus poster designs, Swiss designs, things like that. And this does kind of raise the question, is this Swiss or Bauhaus? Well, considering that Swiss is based in Bauhaus principles, I would say this is inherently a Bauhaus design, but you could also say that it is a Swiss design because of the fonts that are chosen. Bauhaus design typically does geometric fonts, whereas Swiss design typically does grotesque fonts. But either way, you can use them interchangeably, and they still work. One thing I do find particularly interesting about this poster is the fact that it has the large primary type size, and the secondary and tertiary or third level information are both presented in the same size. This is something that you don't see a whole lot of. However, one thing that this poster is doing specifically is that it's using different colors for that information. So obviously with this particular color combination, your eye is going to be more drawn to the lighter type and then the darker type. So just really interesting that it doesn't really follow the traditional formula. Not that there is a traditional formula, but most Swiss posters, at least that I've found, do have some kind of relationship between the type sizes. If you want to learn more about that, check out this video right up here. Alright, next up is this really cool design. I'm not sure if this is a poster, it could be a book cover, it could be some kind of a flyer, it could really be anything. I'm not exactly sure if it is a poster or not, but overall it's a really cool design and it really showcases motion very well. I love how there's only a handful of shapes on this page. You've got the two long rectangles right here, or the long thick lines, and then you've got this ball that's kind of crashing through these lines right here. And it's doing a great job of accurately representing what this ball would be doing if it were traveling forward. The use of the composition and also the color palette are very powerful here. Anything red is really going to draw your eye in. And also this type down here is very interesting. I don't really know what this is advertising or communicating exactly, but it's not too often in minimalist design that you see like a condensed type of font. And obviously this has been saved and resaved many times, so I don't know exactly what the original font looked like, but it is interesting and it also kind of matches the shapes that are up here. So overall, a very cool design, showcasing motion in a very creative way. Alright, next up is another Swiss layout, and I just love how this information is all being presented here. I've done posters similar to this in the past, and one of the things that I love about this is the balance of colors. Believe it or not, it can be very challenging to balance colors effectively the way this poster does. And it's interesting too, because the first thing that you're drawn to is obviously that letter A right there. But that A is actually part of the 13-point A right there, so it is very interesting the way that they've done this. And then the second thing you're drawn to is the large yellow type, and then kind of the third level is the smaller blue type. And even though your eyes aren't quite sure what you're supposed to be paying attention to exactly, it's still a very effective design because of that color balance. It's one of those things where it's the more you look at it, the more you see. And even though there's a lot going on, your brain isn't really working that hard to figure it out. And this is a very, very small thing, but I love this little circle right here. If I had to guess, it's probably an alternate lowercase o, sized down a little bit more, and the baseline has been shifted up. Of course, it also could just be a stroke that matches the weight of the font. But overall, really cool design, and this would actually be a great poster for a new design student to come in and replicate. Okay, next up is probably my favorite one of this bunch, at least so far. And when I was putting this grouping together, I said this one has to be included. And it's just so visually interesting. What they've done here is use the Pathfinder to kind of cut out these shapes that are below right here, and it kind of gives it like this mirroring effect. Design-wise, I'm really a big fan of clouds, so really any design that kind of utilizes clouds I'm going to be drawn to. But I also love this particular shade of red that's set up against these clouds. I would love to create something that is directly inspired by this. One part that I do find interesting is that they didn't cut this little part out right here in the uppercase T. It's directly laid over that uppercase R, and I guess technically it wouldn't be cut out right there, but it would at least be interesting to see what it looked like if it were. And then the whole poster has a really nice grain overlay to it, giving it a very nice vintage feel. So overall, love this poster, and the color combination is fantastic. All right, next up is this really cool square poster design, and I love this really super chunky, crazy thick number 5. It's one of those things where you look at it and think, that's so simple, why didn't I think of that? And I think that that's kind of the designer's plight in general. We see something that is so cool and we think to ourselves, ugh, why didn't I think of that? And I just love the textures that are going in here. I'm a big sucker for textures, especially when there's all these different light and dark color variations going on. But this was obviously some kind of a Days of Type challenge. I've seen a lot of these, especially on Instagram, and it's just really cool to see what people come up with a single letter or number. All right, next up is this really awesome minimalist design right here of this lamp that's made up of very basic geometric shapes. I've done a couple of designs like this, and I think I've even done a few of them on the channel itself. I'll have to go back through and see if I've actually done any videos on this. But it's very interesting to me when I see something that is a part of everyday life and just kind of see what basic shapes make up that thing. And this is a great example of that. So this would be a really good exercise if you're a design student, if you're just kind of learning about minimalist or Swiss design. Take a look at something around you and just kind of analyze it to see what shapes make up that object, and see if you can recreate it in Illustrator. And this is a great example of showing that you don't have to create every single element right here. Because if every element were being used, then obviously there would be a stand going on right here. And it's very possible that the designer actually did have a stand just to kind of get a sense of the spatial relationship between these elements. But then they just simply removed the stand. And even without the stand, it's still very effective. If this is the designer I'm thinking it is, I think he only limits his designs to only a few different colors. I'm not entirely sure, but you can do the exact same thing. All right, next up is this really excellent use of these gradients here. And this is for the 100-year anniversary of Bauhaus, so we've got the B, 1, 0, and 0 right up here. Just an excellent use of this, and I am seeing the number 5 right here, so I'm not exactly sure what that's supposed to be representing. Or I could just be reading too much into it and seeing something that's not actually there. But seeing these different shapes with their gradients overlaid with each other is just such a beautiful design. You can achieve this same effect by using a gradient mesh in Illustrator, and then selecting the portions that you want to be opaque and just lower it down to 0%. But overall, really cool design. I may try to do something like this for a future video. All right, next up is something that just instantly made me laugh as soon as I saw it, but I just love this design's composition. It's using a combination of different elements that are very recognizable, at least to me, being an 80s baby and a 90s kid and everything. I'm sure that everybody, when they see this symbol, they know exactly what it means. But I love the idea of the personification of sound, where the speaker is directly standing in for a person's head. And this is another thing to keep in mind. This actually has a pretty good amount of text right up here, but it's all tucked in to the same corner. Even though this poster has overall balance, you don't always have to balance your type in one corner versus another. The simplicity of this poster really speaks volumes. And that's my only allowed dad joke for the entire day. All right, next up is this really awesome design for the movie The Batman. I've only seen this movie one time. I really need to see it again. I remember liking it a lot. But it has the appearance of like an old magazine cover, like something from the 60s. It's just overall a really cool design. I love how this really rough line going around here is creating the shape of the cowl. If it wasn't there, obviously you would just see the eye and the chin, but the rough lines around here just kind of generally creating the shape of his cowl just makes it so impactful. And the type here is just really awesome and really creative. And this is a great example of saying like Batman at the top, but then also in a smaller size but the same font, you've got the word the right here. So it just kind of helps you to visually fill in those gaps and get that information across. And then the type is balanced right down here in the bottom right corner with its additional type. And I love the inclusion of the question mark right here. The Riddler is my favorite Batman villain. I really do like how he was done in this movie, but I think that Christopher Nolan not utilizing the Riddler in one of his movies is quite possibly the biggest cinematic oversight of all time. Christopher Nolan could have written a Riddler that would have just been spectacular. So overall, great design. I need to see the movie again. All right, the last one here, I wanted to close with another Swiss design poster. And this is really just kind of showing the power of repetition. And it's also got that rotated aspect, just giving further interest to the poster overall. This reminds me a lot of the Ryan Reynolds movie Buried. If you haven't seen that, it's a pretty awesome movie. If you'd like me to make a video on how to do a poster like this, let me know down in the comments below. All right, well, here's all the different designs that we took a look at today. Let me know which one your favorite is down in the comments below. I'm really enjoying doing this series of posters, and I'm loving the conversations that they're starting. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.